Hey, everybody, welcome back to Behind the Clipboard. We are kicking off a new season today with Sean Atlas of Atlas Event Group. Hey, Sean.
Hey Kelly, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. I'm excited to catch up with you and learn about all the great advancements you guys have been making during COVID. You've really pivoted right up to everything that's been going on.
We've been trying.
Yeah. So we met in 2019, started working together then. But tell me a little bit about you and how you got into the wedding and event industry.
So I actually started running pro audio back in high school, and that's kind of where I gained an interest in it. And after college, I regained that interest, or during college, I should say, and started running pro audio, which is kind of what sent me into the DJ side of the industry. And I had regular day jobs and things like that, and I was DJing on the weekends part time, and I had a few of my clients come to me and say, "Hey, why don't you start your own operation and this and that?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, it's a big commitment," and they eventually talked me into it. And almost 6 years ago now, I ended up going full time with it. And in the process of doing all sorts of different events, weddings kind of came along, and I realized that I love doing weddings. I never saw myself, as a wedding DJ per se, until I started doing them and realized how much I love them.
Yeah, they're definitely, I think, a special breed that most vendors don't see themselves in until they experience them. And they're like, oh, wait, this is actually fun. You really get to know the couple and the people there, and it's a good time. So when we met, you were doing more of the DJing and production, but since then, you guys have added all kinds of services to your portfolio. So tell me a little bit more about what you guys do these days.
Yes, we started out, like I said, with the AV side and the DJ side. We ended up adding lighting, photo booths, and then this year, when a lot of our work got postponed, we saw the need that our clients had. Everybody that was not postponing was moving to yard weddings. So we said, well, they're looking for event rentals, tents, tables, chairs, linens. And we said, we're kind of in a unique position where our calendar had opened up a little bit. So it gave us the time to do the research and get into that side of the industry. And it really complements, because where we were doing a lot with the lighting and the look of the wedding already, this just gave us another opportunity to help our current clients out, and potential future clients as well.
Yeah, you guys really kind of became venue builders.
Yes, exactly.
Which is no easy task. So I'm sure you kind of have learned so many things throughout that, which we will get to at the end. But um, so it's obviously been an adjustment and a pivot, especially after doing DJing and specific services for so many years. But why do you keep going? What kind of keeps your passion, in weddings and events and doing all of this?
So it's funny, like you said, working with a couple and getting to know the couple, and everything we do is custom, and we get to know each couple. Um, and when you see it from, start to finish, it's to see that finished product and the look on the couple's faces, and to have them come up to you at the end of the night and say, "This, I could never imagine this." Even with all the meetings we had and all the planning we did, I could have never imagined this to look like this, or for the night to end up like this. Um, but I mean, it still goes back to the music for me as well, where it um having that control over a room, you know, when you have the younger people at a wedding, the older people at a wedding, everybody's on the dance floor together, and you bring such a wide demographic together in one place for one song, and you do that song after song after song for 3 or 4 hours. That it's an amazing feeling to have.
Yeah, it's one of the fields I think that is actually you have instant gratification, right? You get to
Yes,
actually see how people reacting. You walk at the end of the night, you walk home knowing, okay, like tonight went well, everyone enjoyed it, and I did my job. Um,
exactly.
yeah, that's one of the nice things. So we're gonna jump into our hot topic for today, which is taking advantage of your DJ being a one-stop shop. So a lot of times when we work with DJs, couples come to us and like, we just want someone, who can make it a party, but they forget that they also need someone who can provide a microphone and sound system for their ceremony. They also need someone who can MC and keep the day moving along. Then they decide, oh, we really want to add some uplighting. Okay, maybe we want a photo booth. And they start going to all these different avenues where so many DJs and companies like yourself really have it all in one place. Um, so there's so many pieces to that, but I want to start with the emceeing portion because I think people don't realize how important that is in moving a wedding along, and kind of why a personality and having someone who has been in the business for a while and kind of knows all the ins and outs of a wedding is important. So I'd love to hear you talk about a little bit about how you guys MC and why that's so important, and how you guys are able to kind of read a crowd to keep them all engaged.
Yeah, so there's definitely different styles, and everybody has their own individual style of as an MC. And you have to make that connection with the crowd, and a lot of these people you've never met before. So how do you make that connection that fast? Like you said, you have to keep the timeline moving, so you have to sometimes move everybody from one place to another, get everybody seated, whatever it is. And you don't want to do it necessarily as you don't want to sound like you're in a grocery store and you're making a general announcement. You want to make a connection with those people. um, so that's very important. And at the same time, it's very important to learn not to overdo it. And like I said, everybody's got different personalities. Some people like to be on the microphone more than others. I definitely have the style where I like to let the music do the talking for me, but I'm so comfortable on the microphone that I like to feel like I'm having a conversation with everybody in the wedding when I'm talking on the microphone. I don't want to sit there and sound official. So that's a huge part for me, is to when I get on the microphone halfway through the night and everybody turns because they want to know what I have to say next. They're not just listening to hear what the message is going to be, but I actually am pulling them in every time I pick up the microphone, and that's a huge part for me, and that's
Yeah.
how I know I've made that connection.
Right. Because sometimes you're announcing exciting things like a first dance, and sometimes you're announcing things like that we're telling you, like a shuttle is arriving. So it's not always
Right.
super exciting and interesting, but being able to keep everyone's attention definitely kind of helps the flow and the atmosphere. Um, so that is very key. I think the music goes without saying, but adding the personality and that emceeing factor is definitely really important. Also, kind of going into other things is AV and lighting. So I mentioned like ceremony microphones and other places throughout the wedding where you need AV support. A lot of times nowadays too, we got live streaming, people need screens and things, and lighting. So, what other kinds of things do you guys usually add in when people are looking for that?
So we offer all of the above. And the AV is very important, where we're starting to see it now. The majority of our clients are having their ceremony either at the same location, or it's not necessarily in a church or a synagogue. It's on location or a separate location where they're asking us to provide the ceremony audio for them. Um, and the ceremony is, everybody wants to hear what's going on.
Hmm.
To have a microphone drop out in the middle of a ceremony or something is a DJ's worst nightmare. I lose sleep at it. And I've been doing this so long, obviously starting in pro audio. I like to think that kind of gives me a leg up on that sector. Um, but you have to account for the variables, and that's where we come in, doing a site visit ahead of time. I had a wedding last year where the ceremony was directly across the street from a police station. Well, the radios in the police station interfere with the ceremony audio. So it's very important to know that ahead of time and say, okay,
Right.
what steps do we have to take to fix that?
Yeah.
Um, Same with the lighting. Lighting is so important to a wedding. Folks don't realize it. And I always tell my couples, listen, when you speak to your venue, please remind them that after dinner, you like the lights dimmed. If it looks like it's the middle of the day, that's the vibe you're going to be giving off. I can bring in all the uplighting, dance lighting, you name it, club cannons, you name it in the world. But if it looks like it's noontime, people are going to have that vibe. So let's dim the lights in the venue. same with our lightscaping, we like to call it. We set that up with the client ahead of time. What are your wedding colors? Do you want to compare? Do you want to contrast? You want to make sure that your dance lighting, you don't have dots all over the place. Photographers tend to not like that. You don't want to be hitting grandma in the face with a spotlight or something like that in the middle of dinner. So it's very important to have that lighting design ahead of time and know what you're walking into and how you're going to put together for that wedding. And each wedding is, once again, it's like another custom aspect we offer.
And the point you made about kind of venues dimming the lights and just knowing the different atmospheres that you're trying to achieve throughout the wedding is very important, and kind of why it helps to have something that's more all inclusive with the DJ controlling the whole vibe of the party. So from the lighting, the AV and the music, that's all really helpful.
Um, we usually have at least two people on staff at each event. It's always nice to have that second body, and I can only be in so many places at once. Unfortunately, I'm trying to learn to be in more places at the same time, but I haven't gotten there yet. Um, but yeah, we've cut down. We used to go into a wedding sometimes with 4, 5, 6 people on staff, and now I'm cutting down to two, maybe three, depending on what we're looking at as far as a limit goes.
Yeah, and that's something you wouldn't have the option to do if you had four different vendors for all of this, but because
Right.
you have, two people who are knowledgeable in all the different areas can help you with that. So
Yes.
that's great. So now I'm going to transition into one of my favorite parts, which is something that you learned the hard way. So this industry, as we've talked about through this, is very personalized. It's very customized. Every wedding and event is different. So we often are learning things the hard way. So I'd love to learn about something that maybe you've experienced the hard way.
So many things. So many things. I guess the biggest thing I've learned the hard way is to do it right the first time.
Mm.
And that applies to absolutely everything, whether it comes to planning, when it comes to equipment. Um, when I first started out, you try to save a couple dollars here and there. I have a nice set of speakers, but not the best set of speakers. Well, 2 years later or a year later, I go back and buy the best set of speakers. Now I've that's something that I should have just done the first time. So doing it right the first time, buying the highest end equipment, you don't want to have that possibility of um, something not working the way it's intended. Same thing with backup equipment. Always have backup equipment on hand. And that's, unfortunately, I wish I could say I didn't learn that the hard way, but that's definitely what I learned the hard way. Just being prepared and planning, having a plan A, plan B, plan C for absolutely everything, is definitely something I learned very early on, thankfully. But wish I didn't have to learn it the way I learned it. So,
I know. I
um,
think that so many vendors can relate to that, just you're trying to hustle and make it through, and sometimes budget comes into play about upgrading to that next thing and you don't do it, and it bites you in the back. And but you can never also have too many plan B's, C's, D's through Z, as you mentioned. I think that also
definitely,
is a good tip for couples who are having weddings, because they're also going through the same thing. And I see a lot of times where they're like, oh, we'll just cut a corner here. And then it gets to be a month before their wedding. And they're like, oh, shoot, we should just done that to begin with. Like whether it's the tent style or the tent sides, or, something with lighting, or, upgrading the bar or something, it's, just kind of do it the way you want it from the beginning. And then you won't save yourself the stress in the end.
definitely, definitely, exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for joining me. And it was so great to learn more about your backgrounds and what you guys are doing today. And hopefully we'll be together again in 2021 when weddings and everything picks back up for all of us. Everyone go follow Sean on Instagram at Atlas Event Group and check him out online at atlaseventgroup.com. And I'm Kelly with Kelly Elizabeth Events, and that's Kelly Elizabeth Events on Instagram. All right. Thanks, Sean. Take care.
Thanks again for having me.
Bye.